I'm going to make a bead using these 4 colors. These are just my choice for today, but you realize you could do this with gray and black and red and white. I mean, the combinations are endless. So I'm going to start with a little piece of white. I'm going to put it in the clamp. Take a clear piece of glass, put them both gently in the flame, and bring these 2 edges together. Just the edge of the white and the clear. The clear is just being used as a handle, as a punty. And you've got to make sure when you use the colors and the clear, that none of that clear wipes off in the heat onto your bead, because the 2 kinds of glass are incompatible. We're just using the clear as a handle. It is in fact a piece of Italian glass. I'm going to make this into a little wodge like that. Now, I'm inclined to actually go and hold the edge of that piece of glass with, with my bare hands and just sort of pop it in, but I think we'd better just be demure this time. It's amazing how close to a flame you can get to pass a piece of glass in without hurting yourself, but I think probably we need to be more careful. Now there's another piece. I can stick this piece on here. And move this in and show you how you can pick glass up. We've got 2 pieces of glass which have the potential of going together and trapping air. So you need to go in between them, get it nice and hot in between them, and then pinch it carefully from the side so that you're squeezing the air out. You're not trapping any air. When you're working with all these different colors, it's a playful process. You can fold and twist your glass at any point as long as you make sure you don't trap any air. It may sometimes look as if I'm putting this in the flame, but I'm really not. You can have your pieces of glass lying on the counter and just pick them up like this, but always aim for the edge of the glass. I'll tell you what, I'll put another piece in to show you that process again. This looks like a much messier process than I'm putting my flame up a little, than the rods, and it is. It looks pretty messy, but wow, it's really worth it. So I'm squeezing the air out of there again, and I'm going to pick up this piece of chartreuse green, catching it by the edge. So now we're getting a pretty nice wad of glass together. And just watch out for those places where you could catch bubbles. You can mess around, you can squish it around and change direction if you want to. Just get that glass together and watch those corners, those pockets. When you've been doing this for a while, you'd be quite amazed at how much glass you can accumulate in a fairly short time when your flame is up and you really understand what you're doing. So you wouldn't think that this sort of messy old lump of glass could form anything smooth and sweet, but you just watch. All right. You need to pre-warm your mandrel and then really go for the glass. This is going to be a fairly sizey bead, actually. There's there's a real pleasure in pouring this glass, because when you're working with the rods you sort of have to melt it as you go along, but with this you've pre-melted a pretty nice piece. Watch that left hand edge as you feed the glass onto the rod. So that you have a nice straight hole. At this point, you can twist the glass as you go. You can twist it. You can heat the waj up again, keeping your bead hot close by. Go back in. Wipe on some more. Go back here. This is the moment when you have to be very careful to make sure that you don't catch any of the clear glass. So you need to make sure that there's a little bit of color on the end. But the first color that I put on here was white, so the last trail to go on the bead is white as well. The first shall be last and the last shall be first, no? Or yes? Certainly that's the case when you're applying glass. And it's important to remember this if you're going to be doing something where you're mixing colors, which you will do later, to form a sky and an earth. You must remember which end of the bead you would like to have the sky and which end the earth in order to continue the design. And I really have a hard time remembering it sometimes. I know it sounds as if that's ridiculous, but I'll make an earth bead and I'll put the sky on the wrong end and the earth on the other end, and then when I come to actually make the design or the tree, I'm like twisted all backwards trying to do it instead of doing it from this end. And now I'm just going to center this bead. You can center the bead by keeping it out of the flame and just letting it fall into place. There's a lot of different ways of doing this. I know some people who pride themselves on using their graphite paddle very little, if at all, and others who use it extensively. When I'm working alone, I can often make a bead without going near my graphite paddle, but there's always a certain magic to working absolutely alone. Things move so smoothly when you're working with the quiet of your own thoughts. So there's a bead of mixed colors. And when it's completely formed, it is in and of itself a very interesting bead, and one that you don't often see made by people who are using the rods. It can be done, of course, but it doesn't seem to be done very much. The rods don't lend themselves to this kind of work. So now you have all these colors in here. The temptation then is to start to move some of them around. So what I do is I turn my torch down, and as I've got sea colors, I've got blues and greens in here, why don't I just put in a few waves? These beads are actually quite quick to make, and the water beads that I've made and sold over the years have become very popular, and it's really fun to show you how to do it. So you have to let the matrix of the bead get unsticky and firm. You don't want to start moving things around if the matrix is so soft that it'll just kind of like pull out with what you're doing. And when you've got the matrix reasonably cool, and of course you do also have to remember to pass it through the flame every now and then just to remind it not to crack. You look at the design. In this occasion I've got all these swirling whites, and you pick a place and you go into the flame and soften just that area. Put in your clear little stringer. Now this stringer is made of spectrum. I made it just the way I make other stringers, but it is spectrum. And then you just snap it off, and there's a wave. So we could do that again. And you can do it many times, and the bead can just get to be so magical, so simply magical. There we have another wave. You don't necessarily want to put them in a studied pattern. You just look at the glass that you poured on and find the places that lend themselves to it. It's like painting. You're now beginning to paint a sea into your bead with the combination of the colors and your little clear stringer. These little stringers are a magical tool. You can actually melt off a little of that clear glass into the wave, and it'll leave sort of a depth. It'll leave, yes, depth. It'll leave a wet center, a wet place on your bead. So now I'm just looking to see where, and some of your waves can be big. I'll make a big one. You can twist it around more times and gather more glass into it. And then you can make little sort of tiny little floaty waves at the top, just like that, without digging in very deep or moving it very much. And actually, maybe one more wave here, just down there, just a little one. And there actually is your bead, your water bead. And you get to choose whether you want to put it back in the flame and smooth everything out, or whether in fact you want to leave a certain amount of relief on those beads. Obviously you don't want it seriously misshapen, so if you find one of your waves was really stretching itself out and spoiling the general shape of your bead, just go in and work with it a little. But there was never a time when this matrix was so soft, that the basic bead was so soft, that it could get deformed by the work I was doing on it. So if you're living near the ocean and you want to sell your beads in a local shop to the tourist trade, this is a winner.